How's it going, guys? I'm Robert from Machado Visuals, and it's been a hot minute since I've done a video on interview lighting, so I wanted to do a lightning fast breakdown on a recent job I did. In my opinion, interview lighting is one of the most important skill sets to have as a cinematographer, and it's used all the time from commercials to docs, and is probably the skill I use the most. This particular project is your typical testimonial commercial, so one of my objectives was to light our subjects in a way that helps represent their physical transformation. Think high key, bright, flattering. When you're finding your frame on location, you generally want to start by setting your exposure and color temp to the variables that you're not able to control. 10 times out of 10, the location will have really nasty fluorescence or LEDs, and most people start by just turning everything off. But in this instance, I wanted to leave the overheads on so that the background didn't become too dark or moody. We were also far enough away from the background that it didn't spill onto our talent and contaminate the set. I did turn off all the overheads directly around talent so that the only light actually hitting our subject is actually coming from us. So before you go killing all the overheads out of location, see if you can actually utilize any of them without contaminating your scene. If everything is tied to a single light switch, then I'll often set up a floppy right above talent to kill some of the ambient spill, or just use black wrap or gaff tape to cover up any recessed lighting. For our key, we use a slightly modified booklight that resembles more of a parallelogram. With a traditional booklight, you'd bounce your fixture through another piece of diffusion in what looks like an open book, but rather than connecting the bounce to the diffusion, we set our rags parallel to each other and closed off each end with an ultra bounce floppy, essentially creating our own softbox booklight. For our bounce, we used an 8x ultra bounce going through a 6x light grid. I also really like using ultra bounce floppies to close off the book, since that added return helps even out the spread on the diffusion rather than just sucking it up with a regular floppy. What you end up getting is a really beautiful soft light that just glows across the skin. Since we're going for a high key look, we had a pretty low ratio. I was metering 2:1, sometimes 4:1, depending on how close talent was leaning in towards the fill. We used a 600X without the reflector for our book so that we could help fill up our ultra bounce as much as possible. I'll often use this trick when I want a really wide spread across a large area, or if I want super crisp shadows. The only thing you have to really worry about is spill, and I'll usually use something like black wrap or a 2x3 solid if I need to shape it further. To help accent the background, we threw a 1200G through the front door to spread some dapple throughout the environment, and also skipped a 60X on the floor to give the corner a little bit of glow. I love spreading hard light throughout scenes whenever I can, since we see it all the time in everyday life, so it always feels good whenever we can imitate reality in a way that feels natural and organic. Lastly, we threw up a hair light with a quasar double rainbow to help accent our talent's hair, and dialed it to taste depending on how bright or dark their hair was. I typically don't opt for hair or edge lights unless talent absolutely needs more separation from the background, or unless I can actually motivate it throughout the frame. And in this instance, the hair light felt like an extension of the overheads in the background, and also it gave a lot more texture to the talent's hair in a really subtle way. Another small detail we added was a solid floppy in front of the monitor so that onlookers wouldn't be in direct eye line of talent and become distracted during their answer. Alright, so to recap, set your exposure, color temp based on your background. Key with a quality of light that matches the tone of your project. In this case, we used a super soft modified booklight. Accent the background with light to lift the room tone and give a little bit more life to the environment. Add a hair or edge light according to taste to help separate talent from the background. Hopefully this video is helpful in some way. Shooting on location interviews is a fine balance between using what's available as well as augmenting what's already there. You could, of course, just throw up something like a light dome and call it a day, but it just doesn't carry the same quality of light as something like a booklight does. Don't get me wrong, light domes are still super flattering, and in my opinion, is a borderline cheat code to make just about anything look good, but it really is just another tool. Really quick, as a reminder, my new Patreon is free for the entire month of April, where I post full-length behind the scenes from my real job as a working DP, and throughout the month, I'll be posting excerpts here on YouTube from previous videos I've posted over on the Patreon, so be on the lookout. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
I just love using these headsets. Yeah, the mic you're hearing right now is the microphone from from the headset. We just boomed one over the talent.